I'll go from the beginning. Just my story. Um, Born Los Gatos, privileged and raised, and very blessed by parents who cared a lot about us five children. I was the fifth, and kind of religion's not a big thing in our household. Non-religious for the most part. My mom, dad were Catholic, and then the rest of my family is just doing their own thing, living their life. And I was doing that for a while too. And then my dad died in sixth grade when I was 12 years old. So my dad died all of a sudden, not all of a sudden, but he had kidney cancer that eventually went to his lungs and infected everything else. And in the course of 3 years, by 2005, he was dead, unfortunately. And that shocked my family that, that kind of thing would happen so sudden, so soon, and someone so young. And it's really tragic. And, he was our dad. He was a good dad. He was very affectionate. Same with our mom, but the mom was more of the disciplined. She is still the discipline in her family. By the time middle school just starts developing, like at first, I was like, why would my dad die? Like, what does that mean? Why would God, if he's there, allow this? I didn't really question his existence so much as I was questioning just the why and how. And there's a lot to try to figure things out, even with your mind. It's still developing, but being 12 years old, that's pretty traumatic. So my family, luckily we had support for each other. We all were there for each other, but questions kept adding up. Like, we had the internet, and I was questioning things and bringing those questions to people online and discussing philosophy and learning about philosophy and other things, and eventually just kind of decided that I don't know if God's really there. I don't think I need that, since it's not really showing up in my life, and it's not tangible. It's not something I can grab onto. It's something that has substance, because I went to church once or twice after my dad's death, kind of just for him. And my family, we like to think of my dad helping us out here and there in whatever ways, him being in heaven, whatnot, and believing for that. But that wasn't fully comforting for me. I just didn't know. I was hoping for it. I always hoped for that, even when I became more agnostic. By the time 8th grade, I was definitely agnostic in my thinking. And
the internet. There you go. Oh, and
there's a period from like freshman year, my friend, he was already a Christian at this point. He was one of my best friends. I didn't really know much about that. I just knew that whatever Christianity that I saw out there in the news and via whatever media I got it from, and especially on the internet, called them fundies, fundamentalists, and especially by the time sophomore year rolled around, I wasn't a huge fan of them, just because they're so strict. And I heard about Baptists at Westboro Baptist Church. I was just like, these people are crazy. I don't want to be like that. I don't want to be seen by other people as something that is condemning, that is pointing the finger and saying you're not right. It's making a value statement, and I didn't like that at the time, and I still don't. But finally my friend got me to go on Sunday to his church. I don't know what made me think. He just told me to be open to it, because we had previously there was this thing he told me, and I don't know how it planted such a strong idea in my mind, because it's been there ever since. He asked me, like, what if you did believe in God? What if you either took a leap of faith or just considered the idea, if he's there, what then? What would you do with that? How is that? How can you prove that? What can you do with that in general? And I was just like, that's interesting. So I thought, well, what if God is there? I don't know. Just came back to me. Freshman year was pretty rough, pretty antisocial. I just felt like I was really alone in the world. And then sophomore year rolled around. I finally made a lot of friends. I was starting to have a lot of fun. I was starting to have friends who could know how to drive. and discover the world and have fun that way instead of just being stuck in the block. By the time like halfway through the year, there was a turning point when I would have fun with my friends and I would see my life and I would see and remember my dad's death, dying right there in front of me on my own couch, and seeing the nothingness of just death, the absoluteness, the something you can't deny, it's something you can't escape. And that was terrifying to me because I was starting to really enjoy life, and I knew that this world is amazing despite all the horrible things going on. I saw the good in it. That's just how I am. That's my personality. That's how I am. That's how I will be from now on. That's how I'm ingrained, both from having a very healthy upbringing and also just being able to look at things from the right perspective of like, well, yeah, things are bad, but why do we focus so much on those when those give us misery and destruction? And instead now looking at the truth of the matter, that there is something good in everything that you see. That perspective, like I kind of had that, but it wasn't enough. I didn't fully understand how to use that tangibly in my life, and basically I had an existential crisis because I realized, well, if we die, then I don't see the good in that at all, because if it's over and it's over, and my brother and I were talking about it and a few other people online, I was just like, nothing, just nothing after that? That's what's more likely to happen? That's probably what happened to my dad? Like, how do I accept that? How does that make sense? Logically, emotionally, on every facet of our being, we're here, we do amazing things, we do terrible things, we live a great life, we have memories left over, and then what? Eventually those fade? That doesn't make any sense. A lot of those thoughts I was wrestling with sophomore year, and that would plague me, haunt me for days and days at a time. There had to be something, there had to be an answer there, and I couldn't see it, and that was frustrating. So much so it ruined a lot of my daily activities, a lot of my perspective on everything. It instead of looking at the good everything, I'm like looking at, oh well, eventually I'm going to die. After everything I do, after every activity, every thought I had, when I really sat down and was alone, I would just be like, well, I'm going to die eventually, so this is a temporary pleasure. And I was just like, it's not right. So that ruined my days for a while and made me very depressed, and I didn't know what to do with that. Eventually I just reconciled that I'm just going to live my life with a purpose. I'm going to find it, and then I'm going to live it out and do the best I can and figure out the rest later. But I still had the lingering thought in the back of my mind, like, wow, there's still death knocking on my door, and could happen any day, could happen 80 years from now, but regardless, it tore me up and it left a huge void in my heart. Eventually junior year came around, you know, I visited my friend's church another time, you know, during sophomore year, and you know, they had a really good sermon about, I don't know, it was my first sermon I ever heard, so I was just trying to please my friend, and they said something about, you know, tomorrow doesn't have to be like today. You know, today may be bad, but tomorrow there's hope for greater. And I was like, wow, this is a really positive message. I didn't think that the Bible, which they were preaching from, had anything really that good to say. It's just like, wow, so positive and reinforcing, encouraging. I was like, I thought it was about like goat sacrifices, and chicken sacrifices, and bashing against gay people. And that kind of stayed with me, you know, just the impression like church isn't a bad place, you know, they do good things, you know. That's really interesting. My friend who invited me to church, he kept recommending me to go and kept kind of putting a little bit of pressure on, and I was just like, dude, you know, I'll go if I need to. And like, just the more I went, I kind of wanted to go more. You know, it didn't feel like brainwashing. It didn't feel like manipulation. Like no one was trying to get something out of me. I started going on Sundays, and then I heard the messages, and finally the messages from the main pastor who's teaching high school, and I was just like so thrown back by the possibility of not only God existing, but that he cares about me this much, that he would not only provide all things that I need in life, but also but also that he would die for me just so that I could become a better person, not only a better person, but a more whole person. And that just gave me an assurance. And I was just like, I'm going to take a leap here. I've been given some evidence of him existing. I had some strange things happen. I don't remember too many of them, but I remember them just hearing those words and doing the worship and singing and learning how to sing, because I didn't really know. Kind of made me fall in love with something I thought wasn't there. And I'm like, I feel something though. It feels like something's not only there's like a peace, and they're listening. This person, it must be Jesus or God or something. But then in that same year, I had a friend who was not going to my church, who he had some issues with an ex-girlfriend. Eventually they broke up, and I was just there spending a lot of time with them, and this leads to a turning point in my story. All right, the turning point in my life came when that friend who was very toxic, had a meltdown in a car. He took ecstasy before we drove to go to the movie theater, and he had his ex-girlfriend in the car with him. And I did not predict or know much about the effects of what ecstasy does to someone. He might have already been coming off of it, and he was very explosive and volatile. And that led to, me fearing for my life and her life, and my friend, being the one who's endangering us and himself. And it was a horrible night, just a lot of screaming, yelling, and him ranting and raving, eventually pulling over after I calmed him down. I felt like I had a panic attack, it was just bad. It was all bad, and a lot of tears. I realized, this is not working out. Like, the ex-girlfriend he was with is also one of my friends, and I just wanted to protect her, and I felt like I couldn't. And I felt so defenseless, and I could have died. And I was just looking at everything, and I realized I need more in my life than this. And I went to the small group. I told them that story. I'd already been going a few months to that, and they were like, oh man, they're just so blown away by how ridiculous everything was. They weren't mad at me or anything, but they definitely said I need a little bit more positive influences and positive people in my life. I realized, who I valued in life and what I wanted out of life for the most part. I thought I knew what I wanted, but I kind of was still uncertain, especially my future. But I knew there was heaven, possibly. I read a book about Heaven is for Real, which is, about a little kid who went to heaven and something. And that kind of centered my focus, like, wow, I guess Christianity might be the right one. Might be focused on the right God, because so far a lot of the crazy things that have happened in my life, like me being able to live through that scenario where my friend went crazy, all these different stories I kept hearing of people who have their life turn around just very suddenly, like within a month, a week or two, or even a day. Like, just suddenly their whole mindset changes from one idea of a God that loves you, that comes down as a man and dies for you as you, and takes away all of your hurt, all of the pain, all the things that are hurting you as a person and hurting others around you, and then being able to make it so that he can change that with you, because he knows all and he respects all. And so I delved into that more first year of college, especially when I started going to a new church ministry kind of thing, and learned more about this salvation and learned more about the gospel, and learned just in general more about the Bible. I started reading more, started praying more. Previous addictions I had just were gone. Like, the moment I started praying and believing that, not only am I a new creation, as it says in the Bible, that you're made new once you believe. I believed it, and suddenly just things, not everything became easier, but life was definitely more interesting, there's so much that we misunderstand about ourselves in this world around us when we come down to what we think might be true. I look at, well, what is true? What even if it's hard to face, even if it's hard to swallow, what is true? I believe that we all have to search for that. You have to kind of humble yourself and look at the world around you and be like, well, either you search for your life using just either you search your whole life looking around the world, every country, and I've traveled a lot actually. I've seen a lot of things, and I've seen a lot of different cultures, and it's right here, like within here, like whatever goes on in here, like you got to find truth in here. Otherwise, the world around you, it's abstract. It's you can touch it, you can see it, but ultimately it's like it's eventually gonna fade. It's all gonna be gone. So yeah, there's more of this life than meets the eye. That's for sure. And this is what I believe, that's what I've experienced, and I believe anybody can experience it. Anybody who asks God, like, are you there? Show me. And I believe he will show you himself. He'll show you, and he will be authentic, and he won't hold back. Not so much giving you just proof, but he'll give you a relationship. So I believe the whole point of Jesus existing and dying and then raising back to life, because he's God, I believe he came back so that we could have relationship with him. And that is priceless. Like having a relationship with someone who created you, like it's insane. I think that's the whole point of Christianity, to end religion and start relationship.